And that's a whole other conversation. I'm all for Americans' rights to have guns, but I think a lot of the rhetoric that protects the usage of guns is kind of freaking idiotic. I've got a buddy, and this is kind of an off-ramp in terms of our conversation, but I've got a buddy who was involved in guerrilla warfare, who now is trying to matriculate back into society. And when he was half killing machine, half animal for a while, that's no easy road to hoe. But we have some amazing conversations. As you could imagine, this guy's got incredible stories. This is a guy who, this was his job. For a while, his job was, okay, we're going to take your ID. We're going to take your dog tags. We're going to take everything. You don't get to write down where you're going or what you're doing. You don't get to have blueprints of the plan or whatever it is. You have to practice transcendental meditation for a while to empty your mind so that you can fill your mind with maps, objectives, knowing where you got to go, knowing what you got to do, knowing whose lives you inevitably must take. Like I said, this guy's got some fantastic stories, but coming back home, it's been interesting for him matriculating back into normal society. And I was like, so, dude, let me ask you this. You know more about guns and how to use one than the vast majority of people in this country. He was like, yeah, I do. I was like, do you have guns? He's like, yes, I do. And I was like, what do you think of people having guns? I mean, it's a hot debate. I think it's America. You can't hope to disarm America. I myself don't have a gun, but that's because I feel secure in my living situation. If I were to move, I could conceivably get a gun for protection. I would be okay with that because I'm the type of person that I think it's okay to have a gun. Someone that treats it with the amount of respect and responsibility and understands the power it has and fears its misuse. And he was like, then you are the type of person that should have a gun. I've got no problem with you having a gun. And I was like, what do you think of guns in the home? He was like, yep, absolutely. We as Americans, it is our right. He was like, now, the Second Amendment as it stands is ridiculous. I was like, you think so? He was like, yeah. He was like, we should be able to have a gun in the home. But the amendment that protects our rights to have guns in the home should be fixed so that it doesn't really, people don't have this ridiculous argument of like, well, if the government gets too large and unwieldy, we need to be able to organize a militia and go up against them. He was like, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, let me put it to you this way. I'm the hugest fan, and it saved my ass many times. I'm the hugest fan of air-to-ground support. And he was like, you know why? I was like, why? He was like, because the American Army has planes, has guns that can put a bullet in every square inch of a football field in 2 seconds. I was like, that's a lot of bullets. And he's like, yeah. So when you're hunkered down and you've been living on rats and roaches for the last couple of days and you're trying to figure out, when someone's going to roll through and save you and you hear that plane come in and you know it's going to obliterate all the people that want to desperately take your lives, you love that. But here's the thing. Those planes, that air to ground support that comes in, they can put a bullet in every inch of a football field in 2 seconds. They've got this thing called a fuel air bomb that can suck the air out of the lungs of everybody within a mile radius. And he was like, here's why I don't agree with the Second Amendment saying, like, you got to be able to form militia to go up against the government. He was like, there's no way a bunch of rednecks hoarding AR-15s stand a chance. It's just never going to happen. So let's amend our rights to the point where it makes a little sense and the argument to have guns in the home isn't so freaking bananas, and it prevents people who do not deserve to own a firearm. It prevents people from owning them if they don't deserve to have a firearm. It was an illuminating chat, and I have lots of them with these guys. Maybe we'll bring him on the show one day. I don't know if he's necessarily comfortable about the whole situation, but yeah. Not a gun guy, but the only situation I feel I'd be willing to have a gun in is to sit on the porch waiting for my daughter to come home from a date. I'd be that guy. It was like, oh, it's 10:31. We said 10:30. Which kneecap do you feel like you're going to need less moving forward? And I've decided if I ever have a daughter, the time at which she's allowed to start dating will have nothing to do with her age or what grade she's in. It'll be predicated around the time she gets her black belt in her martial art of choice. And this story helps me, it supports that conclusion I've come to. I'm not sure if it's possible for there to be a good story about a man trying to grab a teenage girl, but this is probably the absolute best outcome that scenario can have. A 14-year-old girl in Sussex in England. She was walking home alone last week through a park when a 35-year-old man came up behind her and grabbed her arms. Here's the thing. The girl's been in martial arts classes for years, so she broke free and proceeded to beat the living hell out of the guy, like he couldn't move. And she kept punching and kicking him until finally cops came and arrested the guy. He hasn't been charged yet. The cops are looking for more witnesses, but there you go. That's why my daughter will begin dating once she... My daughter will begin dating once she has her black belt in her martial art of choice. You hear that, unborn daughter? Now you know. Get practicing wherever you might be. Do you have that audio, Funkhouser? Do you have that audio of Raven Symone, who used to play... You remember on the Cosby Show when Rudy Huxtable turned into a preteen and they're like, oh no, we needed an adorable child to say funny things? They wrote in this character called Olivia, and that character was played by Raven Symone. Adorable little child that turned into a somewhat annoying adult. But here's the thing. She's, she said something the other day when she was talking to Oprah Winfrey and wasn't freaked out at all by the fact that Oprah Winfrey was who she was, wasn't intimidated, even though Oprah clearly didn't agree. She said something that I thought was so perfect. And this is, all right, she's a female, she is a lesbian, and she is black. That's a 3-for-3 minority situation. And listen for a second to how she views the world. So excited I can barely talk.
I'm tired of being labeled. I'm an American. I'm not an African American. I'm an American.
Oh, girl, don't set up the Twitter on fire.
I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
My Lord. What did you just say? Stop the tape right now. Okay.
I will say this.
What?
I mean, I don't know where my roots go to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how far back they go. I can't go on, I don't know how far back, and I don't know what country in Africa I'm from. But I do know that my roots are in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an American. And that's a colorless person. Because we are all people. I have lots of things running through my veins.
I mean, you're going to get a lot of flack for saying you're not African American. You know that, right?
I don't label myself.
Okay. So I want you to say what you really mean by that.
What I really mean by that is I'm an American. That's what I really mean. I
don't know if you were listening when we talked about it on the show a little while back, but we talked about the value of living in the now. Here's the thing. If you're driving to work and somebody cuts you off, well, that's understandably going to put you in a horrendous mood. I know it does for me on a regular basis. How long I let that bother me dictates how well or not my day will go. If a guy cuts me off and I scream at the top of my lungs, in the car, behind the wheel, where I do all my best venting, where I get all the absolutely horrendously objectionable parts of my personality out, behind the wheel. If I scream that they're a terrible person, I hope they return home to find that all their children have died in a house fire. Now, clearly, I don't mean those things. But I get mad. Now, if I allow myself to remain worked up, any number of things are going to seem horrendous and horrible and awful as I go through my day. And sometimes, you know what? That gets the better of me. Sometimes, like all of us, I'll get wrapped into this downward spiral of anger for something that I clearly should have let go. And that inability to live in the now, as much as the person who cut me off wronged me, only detracts from my day. Now, that is petty by comparison, of course, to the struggles that various minorities in this country have gone through. African Americans, I feel horrendous for, when you break it down on paper. Look at the Jews in World War II. They had a clear and distinct bad guy. They had Hitler. It was clearly defined. Hitler was evil. And if you, to this day, You could be the sweet old man that lives down the street, but if you, to this day, are found to have been some sort of conspirator, if you're found to be some sort of war criminal, if they find an SS outfit in your closet, doesn't matter if you're 101 years old, you're going to be tried for your crimes and you will be punished for your crimes for the remainder of your life. That is how ironclad this definition of evil was in regard to World War II. That was it. There was a period on the end of the sentence. Same thing with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There was a period on the end of that sentence. It was a horrendous atrocity, yet somehow, okay, maybe atrocity is a strong word, but there was a tremendous human cost. Yet it ended the Second World War. And what happened? America was like, okay, so obviously that sucked. We are going to build you back up. We're going to buy your products. We're going to help you out, because what we did was, look, it was a necessary function of war, but let's be real here. We need to offer you something in return. And so we've done that for years and years and years and years. There was a period put on the end of that sentence between America and Japan. There was never a period put on the sentence of slavery in America. Slaves were sort of were freed, initially freed by Abraham Lincoln because he needed to fight. He needed people to fight for him in the war. But it wasn't in any way, shape, or form equal. There wasn't any kind of equality. It was like, all right, you get to fight in the war. That's one thing. And then, I'm out of time, and this subject has about a year and a half left in it. But there was no period put on the end of that sentence. It was like, you're free. Go. The slave owners, they're just going to have to manage the best they can. Will they get retribution for putting you in a box and whipping you and beating you? No, they're not. There was never a period put on the end of that sentence of slavery in America, of the inequality between black and white. That hurt can be carried around, and justifiably can be carried around forever. But it's not going to help us all move forward and get where we need to go. And so it's horrendous that had to happen to an entire people. But I think the only way forward, the only way toward true equality, is for people like Raven Symone to set an example and say, you know what? I'm an American, and that's it. Leave the past in the past and move forward to a brighter future. Thank you so much for hanging out, being part of my radio family. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do this all over again. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, as they've begun calling it in Seattle.
Turn the other cheek and give people the benefit of the doubt even when they don't deserve it. And sometimes you feel good about yourself for being the better person and doing that. Well, this is not one of those times. I don't think you realize what's on my mind. I've been too nice for way too long. I think I want you to know just what is going on. So bite me, you're a bag of suck. Every second I'm around you, I put down to bad.